Now, Positively Ernie with Ernie Anastas, a New York TV legend and radio host with great positive stories and interviews.
Thanks, Ernie. You're the best.
And now, here's Ernie.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Happy to have you here. You know, I like to cover a lot of different topics. And today I want to talk about safety and security. When you really think about it, I mean, it's a basic human need. You know, we all need to feel secure. We need to feel that we're not threatened in some way, whether it's in our home or at work or outside, wherever it happens to be. We need to feel secure and comfortable. And there are a lot of people that are experts in that field, and I've got one of them today. He's a great guy. I want you to meet Robert Strang. Bob Strang is my buddy. Known him for a long time. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you, Ernie. Thanks for having me.
You are really one of the world's leading, security specialists. I mean, you understand this whole field. You've got a terrific background that we'll talk about. And I was right at the very top, wasn't I? It's a basic human need. We need to feel safe.
All of us, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and you deal with that every day. What do you hear from people saying, hey, take care of me?
Yeah, well, listen, it ranges, right? Because you have a lot of people with a lot of money that can, really have private security. Think of it that way. But for most of us, walking the streets every day, riding the subway, just daily life, there are things that people have to be aware of. They have to look around. They have to, know their environment. Take the headphones off. There's some basic things that people can do to keep safe.
And now, Bob, more than ever. I mean, we watch the news, we follow it. It's part of our business as well, our industry. And, there's so much going on out there, and it's frightening. Because there was a time, and a lot of us can remember, when you didn't worry about locking the door.
Right.
You lived in a neighborhood where people looked after each other.
Yes.
And it was a whole different feeling of security. That has changed dramatically. And I want to just start by focusing on the local level, how people feel in their own home, in their own environment, Bob.
Right. I do think people feel very safe in their home, in their own environment. I think that as far as, that's their safe place, right? I think really the problem is when they don't have control over their own environment, when they're out in the public and they're walking on the street and using transit, then they become a potential victim.
Exactly.
So, being home, I think people still feel that safety net there.
We have our nest.
Yes.
We have some sense of protection. And I also think, I did a story recently about how people are more neighborly. Particularly in the suburban areas. In the city, sometimes, it's difficult. You live in a large apartment building, to really get to know your neighbors. Oh, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
No. I mean, I think that you're right. I think even in the buildings in New York, you get to know your neighbors, and everybody kind of does look out for one another.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right?
But when you talk about safety, you're opening it up, and that's true. I mean, people are saying, where can I be safe anymore? Violence happens everywhere, in the malls, in our schools. It can happen in a church, in a synagogue. It can happen anywhere, a public place. You don't feel that kind of security that you used to feel at one time. Why has that changed so dramatically?
Oh, my God. Well, we don't have enough time, but I think, look what's happening around the world. Look what's happening with Israel and Hamas. Take a look at the war with Ukraine and Russia. Look what China is doing to try to take over Taiwan and perhaps other islands. So we're dealing Iran, and look at what they've done.
Sure.
This is a crazy time from a macro perspective, right? Even China sending fentanyl, which is killing hundreds of thousands.
What a huge problem that is.
China sends that directly here now.
Yeah.
So it's almost like drug warfare. China supplies the United States with fentanyl, and we have well over 100,000 deaths from fentanyl last year.
And you're very active. You're a vice chair of DARE America.
Correct.
And you're really involved in this. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Talk about the drug issue right now, because that really affects so many families, so many people.
Every family.
Yeah.
It's addiction is it's one of the biggest problems that we're facing in the country. And it does tie back into the crime and the quality of life for all of us. And if we can deal with this drug problem, a lot of these other things will fall into place. When we talk about, the Bail Reform Act and the fact that the police can't, when they do arrest somebody, they're right back out on the street.
Yeah.
a lot of it has to do with drug sales. A lot of it has to do with drug use. You know, a lot of the things that you see, the crazy actions of people that don't seem to make sense, pushing people on the tracks, punching people in the face. A lot of it comes back to drug use. And what we're dealing with is young people are growing up without any education. They're growing up just from living in their environment, seeing day-to-day life, and they become, unfortunately, drug users. There's no treatment facilities available for these people on the street. You know, there's so many ways to get people better today with medications, with different therapy. There's no place to go.
So you know, people who are like watching, listening to us right now are saying, okay, you've got some expertise. I mean, you're involved in a very professional way. Where's the answer? What do we need to do? What programs do we need to initiate and to empower those individuals to be able to make those changes?
Right. I think it's leadership. Right? I mean, it comes down to the fact that you need to pull this together, right? You need to get all of your treatment, your education, all of this has to, your enforcement operations. You have to kind of really get people together, you know, and sit in a room and say, what are we going to do? How can we figure this out and make it work?
I agree with you there, because leadership is very important. But there are also people that will say, you know, a lot of this comes from the home, that we have to make sure that we educate our young kids and communicate with them, talk to them, ask them what's going on in school, what's going on with their friends, and be able to share that. And many times, you know, we're stuck with the telephones, you know, we're on social media, and that has more influence and power over parenting.
Right.
And I'm very big on that. I think that's important to be able to communicate with your child, because that's, to me, that's the source right there.
Yeah. No,
I know it's very difficult because it's challenging, because all of these forces out there are powerful as well. But I think you can make a difference.
You can. You know, you one of the things that we do in DARE is we had, in New York City, we had 100 police officers in the school systems teaching decision-making to kids in grade school. And after 9/11, we lost the DARE program in New York City. So, and very often, the DARE program is the very first time that a young person has a positive experience with a police officer.
I like that.
I like it too, and there's many stories. And, you know, DARE is one of the oldest drug education programs in the world.
Great reputation.
And it's still today very strong across the country. But what we need to do is, it's great in Long Island and upstate and across every state.
Yeah.
But the big cities, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, you know, why aren't we helping these kids with making decisions?
Well,
this is so important.
I totally agree with you. You know, I mean, I've covered the news, as you know, for decades. And, you know, coming on the air every night and just telling people how terrible the world is, I've devoted myself now to making sure that if there is a problem, that we don't just let it hang there. We look for solutions.
Absolutely.
Try and find a way to make it better and talk about it and take action. And I know there's so much going on. And you know, you've got a terrific background. You know, a former FBI agent.
DEA agent. That's where I was for most of my career.
Yeah.
So,
you know, you really have a great overview of what's going on in the world of security. And, you know, Bob, I don't have to tell you, look at all the scams that go on. I mean, people, you know, there's so much fraud that's happening on a day-to-day basis. Major fraud and small. I mean, how many times do you get a little notice and someone's asking you for your credit card number because, you know, you didn't make the payment?
Right.
And they want money. Or they're making phone calls to the elderly and saying, your grandson is in trouble. You know, send us $5,000. I mean, that's a lot of petty stuff, but it adds up. So what are we going to do about all of this stuff?
You know,
deal with it.
It's the opposite end, right? Our young people are vulnerable to so much that's out there. Our elderly people are very vulnerable to scams.
Yeah.
And then there's all of us in between that, you know, have to deal with scams, and half the time we can figure it out. But, you know, you go on your computer, you think you're getting something from your bank, you know, somebody's phishing. If you click the button, they're going to be in your computer and be able to get everything, all your data. So, you know, it's a different world, Ernie. The electronic day is here. There's so many scams that you can do online that people do. They don't even have to leave their basement, their mother's basement, or wherever they are.
Yeah.
Some of them are in this country. We have a lot of problems from the Philippines and from Russia and Eastern Europe. where people come and steal money and data and sell it. There's so much information out there, even on like you and me. There's so much information. There's not enough bad guys to use it.
Wow.
Think of it that way.
Wow, that's
there's
interesting.
so much data available on the black market that there's not enough organizations to sell it and use it.
How interesting is that? So what does that tell us? I mean, look, you're CEO of your company, and you deal with a lot of major clients as well. So you've got a good view of what's going on out there. AI is coming in there strong as ever. There are so many other technological advances that are being made. Is this going to help us, or is it going to make it even more complicated? I wonder.
It's a good question. I worry. I worry a little bit about the capability of AI and how it will be used and how it is being used. So it's just another form of a challenge for us in every capacity, not only in terms of security and safety, but across the board.
When you're working with your clients, and you don't have to name names, but tell us what you advise them on, because there are fraudulent issues and there are other security issues involved. How do you help them? What do you do?
Right. So, look, I mean, it's common sense, but, the clients that we deal with are like family offices and, large corporations and people that travel, CEOs, even people that, fund a lot of these programs, because of their position in the world. They have to have people around them that have background checks. They're pilots. Their everyday life has to be monitored pretty closely, because remember, if you're a billionaire, you're a target. So there's very little that you can do yourself as a very wealthy, well-known person, because you are being targeted all the time.
So when you're looking at major corporations and billionaires, when you're looking at people who have the clout and the ability, but you're also looking at people who are vulnerable, and there's a lot at risk for them.
Correct.
So what are they doing to say, hey, wait a minute, come on, corporate America, let's get behind programs to protect themselves, protect corporations and so forth, and it whittles down to the individual as well. What's being done about that? Do they? They
do. I think a lot of the people that have, a lot of the corporations that are doing well, a lot of the family offices that have tremendous amount of money, they are making an effort to provide second chances for people, to give money to education. They are out there doing the best they can. Some are quiet, some are want to be visible and be part of an organization, but. The private sector adds tremendous value to safety and reducing crime. You can't always just look at the police department and say, well, why can't they lock these guys up and what's the problem? Because it's everybody. It's corporations, it's wealthy families, and it's a matter of working together to solve a problem.
The blame, everybody likes to point the finger. You're wrong, or she's wrong, this is wrong. If we're looking to avoid the blame and looking to say, okay, we talked a little bit about this, leadership. Let's just figure it out openly right now, with your experience. What steps should be taken? How can we make people feel better that something is being done to help protect us? I look back when I was in the government and we had some of these similar problems. And I think one of the key things is to get everybody in a room. You get the head of the DEA, the FBI, ATF, U.S. Customs. You get every federal agency, U.S. Attorney. You get all your police commissioner, your state police, and you have one day where you're going to talk about how we're going to clean up the city. What difference can we make? Back then we did Federal Day. So we'd go all over the city. No one knew when we were coming because you couldn't keep anyone in jail back in the 80s either. Yeah, right. So we started going to neighborhoods and bringing them into the federal system. These people went to jail for a long time. And it was a real deterrent. It's really what helped clean up the Lower East Side 30 some years ago. So
there are things that can be done. You know, we've got to work together, the federal, the state, the local, and really come up with some creative things that can make a difference.
You know, Bob, I'm going to jump around just a little bit because a lot of people are listening and saying, you know, we're talking about problems and we're talking about people that should be talking to each other and communicating. I don't have to tell you, there's a feeling out there that when it comes to leadership, and I don't care what party you belong to or no party, but when it comes to leadership, a lot of people are disappointed that many of our leaders are concerned about themselves. What's in it for me attitude. I mean, I'm being very blunt, rather than what's in it for all of us. What is the big picture? How can we help one another? And it's just ignoring and taking care of their own next election or funding whatever they want to do. And that kind of greed, that kind of attitude has divided us in many ways. And it's trying to find a way to get us back together again by finding those leaders who are going to be totally committed to the big picture. I think you agree with me on that.
I do agree, but I'll say this, that the police officers, the federal agents, young people that want to get into law enforcement or criminal justice, they are the leaders. They're the people out there that are getting the job done, that want to help society, that really care. They're not running for office.
Right.
They're getting up every day, going to work, and trying to make a better life for all of us.
They need all the support they can get.
Exactly. They need the support from their commissioner. They need the support from their SAC. And for the most part, you know, they get it. And you can see when you don't have the backup and you don't have the support, it becomes difficult for an agent or a police officer to do their job.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because you know you have these hardworking individuals. You see them with Dare America and other organizations. They're doing the work.
Right.
But they're not getting the recognition.
You know what? They are, though. They're feeling, you know what? The day-to-day law enforcement personnel really feel like they're doing a good job. They, you know, look, you know, there's certain things they can't control, but there's certain things that they can do. And the reason they even get into the profession is because they want to be able to help people. They want to make a better life for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So we have to encourage that and continue that, and not discourage them when they do get on the job. And you know, continue to enforce that spirit, that the reason they initially got into this, right? We want to continue that as years go on.
So I'm hearing a lot of optimism from you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
A lot of optimism.
We've been through this before. We'll get through it again. We know what we need to do. We have the tools to do it. We've got the great people who are the police officers and the agents that are really looking at this problem. So I have, I think we've done it before. We'll do it again. One way or the other, we'll get there.
Bob, I like to finish by asking a question to everybody that's, I think, a fun question. And I want you to come up with something that's just from your heart. We're talking about a newborn baby, okay? A newborn baby comes into this world, and you have an opportunity to give this little one some information, a little nugget of experience in your life that this little child will be able to take with them and maybe at some point, you know, use it somewhere. What advice would you give to a newborn baby to help them throughout their lifetime?
Well, you know, it's almost like what you would tell your own children,
You're a parent.
right? Yeah. I think, you know, I think you want them to be happy, right? And you want them to do something that is going to make this a better place in some way. You know, and that can be anything. If you want to work on Wall Street and make a lot of money, great, but you better start getting involved with contributions and donations and getting the work done. If you want to become a police officer, better yet, you know. So I think you follow your passion, you do the best you can, and you become part of a bigger picture. Yeah. And that's what makes the world a better place.
There's a quote that I use often: don't strive for success, strive for significance. Do something that has a sense of purpose and value.
Well said.
Before we go, is there a website anywhere that you want people to go to if they want to get in touch with you?
Oh, sure.
And get information from you, or
sure. Investigativemanagement.com, and we're our headquarters is here in New York. So that's investigativemanagement.com.
This is a great guy. knows a lot of stuff, and I liked your optimism. I love ending on a positive note.
Thank
Bob
you,
Strang,
Ernie.
good to have you as my guest today. Stay positive. Be happy.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
You too.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.